Okay, welcome in. I guess we're going to call this a special emergency garden report, Bobby. I don't know if it's an emergency, but there's
There's
there's a
alarms
there's
sounding.
a 5 alarm fire brewing right now. So we got a lot to talk about, and I know it's middle of the day and people are working, and we fully understand and appreciate that. So for those of you who join us, we welcome you, and we are interested kind of your takes here, and some people might be playing catch up on what it is that we do plan on talking about. So we'll kind of set the stage and we'll discuss it a little bit here, and then we will, kind of get some comments from you guys and see what you think. But it's pertaining some recent Jaylen Brown comments. We've now got a second interview that's been released in the last week, and some really interesting stuff coming out here in a long form interview with the Ringer. A really good story, covered a lot of stuff. Not to disparage the first New York Times one, but I do feel like he didn't really feel like he wasn't in a super talkative mood in that one, and was a little bit guarded. And he opens up a bit more here, and he says
I
some things that
remember I
yeah.
remember watching this interview take place at practice in January, and that's important too, is that this interview did come from January, and it was a long, long interview. I know, like you said, Jalen can be short and contrite at points, but he definitely talked to the Ringer for a long
Yeah.
time.
So this was pretty good. Tell you first off again, the podcast, as always, and as all of our programming here at CLNS Media, is powered by FanDuel, our exclusive wagering partner over at the Garden Report. Check out FanDuel.com /Boston if you want to sign up. Bet five, get 200 in bonus bets right off the bat. And again, if you go through fanduel.com /Boston, that way they know we sent you. And of course, please check out Athletic Greens if you're interested in your health. We'll tell you more about this sponsor a little bit later, but a terrific vitamin supplement. If you go to athleticgreens.com /garden, you get a free 1 year supply of vitamin D, 5 free travel packs, and a special gift we'll tell you about a little bit later on. But let's get into what's going on with Jaylen. So Jaylen gives an interview. We're going to talk about some of the quotes here. There was a lot that stood out here, Bobby, and I think the New York Times one and the difference between this and that. The New York Times interview, I feel there was stuff about Boston in there and stuff that you understand justifiably why he'd have some issues and some things that are going on with Boston, and not being necessarily the most welcoming place, and a lot of other things that were discussed in that interview about why he's not. He's looking for more progress and he's looking for more movement and things to change here a little bit. And he's been at the front lines trying to affect some of that change. Hasn't necessarily gone as well as he had hoped. Talked about some toxic fans and and how that kind of poisons the waters a little bit. So you got that perspective in the Times interview. In this one, there was a lot more organizational stuff, and that's really what stood out to me. And for the first time ever, not he addressed his future in Boston in a very clear way. And that way was to say that he's not certain. Like, he's never said, I want to come back. No one's ever heard that. But this is the first time he said, I don't know if I'm coming back. Here's the quote directly, and this is the one that I think set off the most alarm bells, Bobby. I don't know. As long as I'm needed, it's not up to me. We'll see how they feel about me over time, and I feel about them over time. Hopefully, whatever it is, it makes sense, but I will stay where I'm wanted. I'll stay where I'm needed and treated correct. Okay, let's dissect this one. What's your read here? This was pretty, like, Boston. These guys have to do more to show me that I should stay here. At this moment, I am at the very clear. At this moment, I am undecided about my future. 1 year out from his contract.
Yeah, and that's my reaction to both pieces, is that more is needed. He's currently not in a place where he feels committal to the franchise for whatever reason. His role, we've heard him discuss that over time. Money, I think, will come into play here as well, as it looks more unlikely or uncertain whether he's going to make the All NBA team this year and set himself up for that Supermax. And then, of course, you have the Boston angle as well, which clearly Eric's frustrated. And we talked about that as well, given the business and housing and whatever hindrances he faced that he mentioned in the New York Times piece. Not stunning to me that there's some discomfort here. In fact, I think some of it
It's
even you
it's
can
your
read
fault,
from.
Bobby. I just want to point out that there's going to be people that say it's your fault that he's leaving. Guys, they don't give a crap about the media. Okay, they don't. They want to get paid. They want to feel respected in the organization, and they want to play in front of fans that care. They don't give a crap what is said on the Garden Report.
I
Trust
don't
me.
think Jaylen. I
Trust
don't
me.
think Jaylen knows
Jeez
the
Louise.
Garden Report exists.
Give me a break. And it's not talk, but it's not just that. It's talk radio and this and that. That's not it. It's being dangled in trade rumors over and over and over again, and having the organization clearly, and sometimes your coach clearly favor another player on your team when you might feel you are their equal, if not better than them in every way. If he's being driven out of town, it's that plus money plus the city, not what Bobby Manning might have said on the Garden Report. So come on, let's
Or
get
John
real with it.
Zannis.
Give me a break, okay? But go ahead.
No, it's because you don't do enough segments on him, John.
Yeah, I
You
know.
leave him out of the
Exactly.
show too
He
much.
knows he's not talked about in glowingly enough on the Garden Report, so he's leaving. But let's get serious with it. He's got some issues. There's a multitude of them, and it's not one thing. Boston is one thing. And it's very real and it's understandable. Just might not be the city for him. That's a factor. It's always going to be a factor. Money is a factor. If he's not super maxed, he can really pick and choose where he wants, and it's not going to hurt him in the wallet. Being behind Tatum, feeling that the organization has supported him. You sign here, are you just another trade chip and another contract? They're going to look to move you every single time Kevin Durant or another alpha superstar bats their eyes. That's an uncertainty that he doesn't necessarily want to deal with. I think that's very real. Relationship with Tatum, professional at best. There's no warmth there when they talk about one another. It's professional. There's no hatred there either. There's no animosity, but it's not like he's leaving a brother or one of his boys. If he's close with anybody, it's Marcus. And we know that. But again, the closeness doesn't matter. There's nothing about Tatum that's driving him away other than potentially having to consistently play in his shadow, both in terms of perception and in terms of the coaches. Last plays being drawn up, X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of reasons why Jaylen would want to go, but to hear him say this so clearly that, and again, the one that gets me, Bobby, is the tail end of the quote. I will stay where I'm needed and treated correct. That strongly intimates, that hints very strongly he does not feel he's being treated right or correctly within the Celtics organization right now.
Yeah, and he had comments to me earlier this year about his role under Joe Mazzulla, moving him more off the ball. I think moving him more into a secondary scoring position. Even though his scoring's been super efficient and career high this year, I think Ime Udoka had a different plan, a different vision for his game than Joe Mazzulla has. Whichever you think is better for him, better for the team. I think his role this year is proven better for the team, and he does indicate his willingness to play a role to win. But a time will come when he faces a decision on what he wants. And he's basically putting the warning sign out there now that my role, I guess, standing on a team matters to me. And so that could change over the coming year and change. I think a variety of factors will ultimately make the decision for him. But when you stack up Boston, when you stack up his role, when you stack up the money, those are three things that point toward him not staying. So you're going to face a difficult decision this summer if you're the Celtics. I've gleaned that they don't have a strong sense of
They
where
don't.
he's at either.
They don't.
And that adds to concern. So I think this postseason will probably dictate some things too, like how far they go, how the season finishes. You might have to make a difficult decision. And I said this last week, 2 weeks ago, on where the team's going. If you continue this slide late in the season, if Brown and Tatum don't hit their mark in terms of playing together and playing off of each other that we saw last year and early this year, and you don't get that commitment from Brown, because yes, Brown can go and earn Supermax status again next year, but you're taking it to free agency. You can prove yourself and improve this situation with Brown. Whatever his biggest concerns are, you can start to address those over the next year. But if you don't get an extension done this summer, you're going to free agency. And as we've talked about, if you get to a sign and trade or an outright departure, it's not certain, but is it fair to say that could be the beginning of the end of Tatum's time here too? If you lose Brown for nothing, your roster's in a spot where it can't compete as effectively without Brown. And then, Tatum comes up on his extension too. It's going to be a super max, so you would think he'll take that, but you never know. And even if he does take that, stars can choose to move on from a team at this point early in their deals, as Kevin Durant just did.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
look,
I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves with all of that, but this is where this is pointing towards, and it puts the Celtics in a tough spot. And I don't begrudge Brown for doing it because I think he's valid with a lot of the things he's talking about right now. But he's certainly putting the onus on the team to do better, to, as you said, treat him correctly,
yep,
and for
yep.
situations to improve that are going to take some time to improve here in
Yeah.
Boston.
Thank you for the super chat. We really do appreciate it. Anybody who does contribute here to the Garden Report, just let you know that the money is given out to all of the hosts on the show, not the greedy money grubbers who own and run CLNS Media. I'm just kidding. But just so you know, so we do really appreciate that. It is kind of redistributed to the host 100% of the profits there, which is great. So thank you so much when you do. I think this is a fair point. I think it's really funny. I'm not. We're having the Jaylen conversation for two reasons. One, he's first up in
Yep.
terms of who you have to re-sign. Two, you don't know about the Supermax situation, which will affect his decision making. Three, he's kind of going on what I guess you would describe as a media tour at this point. Like, yeah, I want to tell people right now what I'm thinking.
I don't know
And
about that.
I mean, I'll put it this way. Neither of these interviews was about a specific thing. Okay. It wasn't about one thing. It was just about Jaylen. He wasn't gone to talk to about a thing. He was talked to about all things. So it was in both cases a full on, whatever you want to call it, expose on the mind of Jaylen Brown and what he's currently thinking about a series of topics. Okay. That to me is, yeah, I'll tell my story. If you guys want to come talk to me and you ask me the right questions and ask them the right way, I may say a thing or two. So again, it's interesting to me, but I absolutely don't think Tatum is a lock, whether Jaylen comes or goes. I think one of the things with these guys that people have to accept is, I know everyone loves them or wants to love them, but the reality is, in terms of warm fuzzies coming back to Boston, these guys aren't throwing a lot of those bouquets your way. They're not. It doesn't mean they don't like it. Doesn't mean they don't appreciate the fans. Doesn't mean they're not currently happy with their playing situation. But there's a difference. You could tell. And again, not everybody has it at every stage in their career. Paul Pierce didn't love it here until he loved it here, and it was the only place. Kevin Garnett didn't want to come here at all and literally considers it, the greatest thing that ever happened to him. David Ortiz being another. You have athlete, a lot of the current Bruins. It's not for everybody, but you feel the love coming back from a lot of those guys I mentioned, and that's the common thread. There's not a lot. Marcus is a tried and true guy. He leaves it on the court here. You can tell that. I think he gets the whole thing. And he's a guy who, you talk about respect, and people
He's been the most disrespected
he's
member
been
of
the
the
most
team.
kind of most polarizing, whatever. But there is something about Isaiah Thomas. Huge in a very short period of time. I love Boston. Boston loves me. You feel it going both ways. You never feel it from these guys, which is why, as a fan, I think you should always wonder and worry, like, what you're either offering them the best situation, and that includes money and an opportunity to win, and even that might not be good enough. And I think that should be scary. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist for the sake of doing it. I don't know how anybody feels super confident that they're absolutely coming back here, because you're not getting a lot of that love coming back your way.
You're also in a championship or bust
But they
situation
might in
over the
contract
next
too.
year or
By the
two.
time they're 8, 9 years in, they might be like, I could never have imagined leaving. There's also plenty of people who leave, Bobby, who are like, I didn't realize how good I had it. I went to this place and nobody gave a crap at all about me. The fans barely showed up. It was like I didn't exist. I walked down the street and it didn't matter. You get a lot of people who feel like, and some people who go on somewhere else and they're the same
Horford went
miserable.
through that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that wasn't the best thing for me.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was, but it wasn't. So it's not saying they're right. But what I'm saying is there's not a tie here at this point beyond, what the Celtics have to offer them. It is not a draw to the city. It is not a draw to the organization necessarily.
Yeah, and this challenge is on the court right now, as we can see. I still love the comments he made in Minnesota about leadership, and I think those
I
pointed
feel like
at,
that was a bit of a shot at Tatum.
yeah, I think those pointed at his teammates atop the organization too. And sometimes I don't feel like this team takes on enough of his personality, and you see him trying to set a tone, and you see guys not following it. as much as we'll toss around that finals narrative forever, who played better in that series, who set the tone, this and that, I did see Brown in those finals trying to attack, trying to engage in battle with the Warriors in ways Tatum didn't. And I don't feel like other members of the Celtics followed his lead in that situation. And often I'm finding him play with a level of urgency
Well,
that other guys don't take on. And I don't think he gets lost anymore. When it comes to production and opportunity, it feels like he's on an even scale with Tatum. Maybe not from a ball handling sense, but from a scoring and shot standpoint, sure. For some reason, though, like you can feel it too, John. There are nights where it doesn't feel like he's the focal point when
he's
he should be, when he
de-emphasized.
proves he should be.
He's oftentimes de-emphasized, and you have the greatest example of Tatum taking the last shot against, who was it, when he missed the layup on a game that
Houston.
Brown had 43 points or whatever.
Yeah.
That to me is, I mean, I don't care. I hate throwing around the disrespect card. Because a lot of what people consider disrespect is not actual disrespect, it's just criticism. That to me was a bit of disrespect. Like, if Jaylen Brown didn't earn the ball in his hands on that last possession, when will he? You know what I mean? Like, sure, a lot of times, and this is the problem. The problem, I think, with JB, in these games, Bobby, we've talked about it, is who's their offense running through. I think because he's a little bit more turnover prone than Tatum, and Tatum is a slightly better playmaker, they view him as the guy who should dictate. But that doesn't go well. The slow down offense, the way Tatum plays late in games, and Brown's got to be sitting there like, come on, let's go, let's go. And you're right. Sometimes his urgency is almost like a referendum or subtweet of like what's happening around him, which is like, no, not this. Give me the ball and watch. Let me show you what to do. We go, we attack. You see Smart do that at times when everybody breaks down too. Sometimes Smart's like, man, we're not doing anything. And he'll go to the hole and try to initiate and show people like, let's do this, guys. So when Jaylen does it, I think a lot of times he's also kind of doing it like, we need more of this, not whatever it is that you're dealing. I think the contrast in their styles too, and who gets the ball in their hands and who gets to do what with it, is also something that isn't necessarily ideal for him. It's why I've always thought, I don't believe that it's not the players. I don't believe that the Celtics were ideally, were in the best position having their two best players by far, both as wings, because there'll be some redundancies there. There will be times where somebody needs the ball or somebody wants the ball or somebody should have the ball, and it's always going to be a little my ball, your ball. So you see it at times with these guys, and I'm sure that's part of the thing that, Jaylen doesn't love.
Yeah, and to be fair, we know he doesn't have the greatest ball handling capabilities right now. Could those improve into the future? Possibly. But there were moments in that, I think, Minnesota game where he took on more of a ball handling role and turned it over and made some bad decisions. You mentioned, I think this was from the Utah game, right, where he's jumping up in the air with the ball and dumping it off to guys at the last second. So he needs to prove.
Yeah, that's the problem. And that gets lost a little bit.
He's capable in those spots to be able to consistently earn them. And that's been discussion around him for a long time. We've seen him frustrated when he receives questions on that topic, but that still remains the biggest thing holding him back from becoming a top 5-10 player in this league right alongside Tatum. And Tatum made massive strides in those areas, though he continues to have limitations too as a ball handler. So I think they've settled into good roles alongside each other. They just have to commit and succeed in those. And we've seen Tatum slip in his, and that might be frustrating Brown, although I think that's more of a short-term thing. The things we're talking about when it comes to his standing in Boston into the future are big picture issues when we talk about the three things: money,
and
city,
again,
and
just saying
role.
things like feeling, the treated correct, like that to me is definitely that's clearly saying he's not right now, because here's the thing. There's a way to answer this. If you like it here, but you also, there's no reason. There's no negotiation here. You know what I mean? There's no hometown discount. Basketball's different than other sports. That's what people are like, oh, what's he going to say? He wants to be here and kill his leverage. No, that works in other sports,
He goes to the table and gets the Supermax now.
He gets what he wants. That's not an issue. If what he means by treated, correct, and needed just means as long as I get my Supermax, I'm good, and that's just coded, then that's different. But if treated correct means
we know he already has that leverage.
But that's the thing is that's what's so interesting is there's no reason to not say, yeah, I'm friggin' returning here unless there are things you want to see done different. Because it's not, like I said, in football, the hockey, other sports, you say, yeah, I want to stay with this team at all costs. Your agent is like, no, don't say that. You're
Well,
giving them the
here's what he said
leverage.
about
It
that in the
doesn't exist in Boston. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't exist in the NBA. You are slotted into a guaranteed deal. He knows what he's going to get paid. You can easily say, yeah, I mean, of course I'm returning here. Where would I want to
here's what he
be?
said. Here's what he said about that in the Ringer article. He says, "I just enjoy the time that you have now. It's your whole career. If it's not, it's not. Some of the greatest players of all time haven't finished with their organization. Michael Jordan retired a Wizard. As much as we like it here and enjoy being here, you see where life takes you. You see how the process goes. All you do is really focus on what's in front of you now, to be honest. But I don't really know or want to answer that question because that's the type of stuff that makes Celtics fans speculate and go crazy, especially right now. I'll just say we'll get there when we get there."
Yeah, there's
So I think he
literally
sort of calls back to that Kyrie situation where Kyrie's like, "I'm staying if you'll have me," and everyone goes crazy and says it's in the books, and then things change over the next year that take Irving away
that's what I'm
from
saying
Boston. It
is
becomes a firestorm.
it's either not good enough now or he really needs to see what's going on when it happens in order to make it happen. So again, all of it is definitely interesting and it'll set off a lot of alarms. There's some interesting things he said, both in terms of the Kevin Durant situation, also a phone call that he'd had with with Brad and Jason after that situation, what will make him stay in the organization, and some stuff on Ime as well. We're going to hit all of that. Through the rest of the show here, but time again to tell you briefly about FanDuel. And for those, again, interested in signing up, as you know, here in Massachusetts, sports betting went legal almost 2 weeks ago. FanDuel and CLNS have partnered. We are the exclusive wagering. They are the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. It's America's #1 sports book. You can get $200 in bonus bets when you make a $5 bet. All you have to do is sign up. You can see it down there, FanDuel.com/garden. Bet on all your favorite stuff. I know Bobby has dipped his toes in a little bit. On some stuff. So,
Yeah.
and I did as well. Thank you, Bruins, for making my first bet at FanDuel extremely easy one in the 7-0 win over the
Those are great, aren't they? You sit back, put your feet up, relax. You're like, I won. It's
over the
tougher in
Sabres.
basketball though, because you get those crazy backdoor covers.
Always crazy covers. Basketball really makes you sweat. But anyway, don't miss your chance on those $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit fanduel.com/Boston. Make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. We do need to inform you, you must be 21 or older and present in Massachusetts to take advantage of the deal. You must make a $10 initial deposit, but only a $5 bet in order to be given those bonus bucks, which are non-withdrawable. They expire in 14 days. Restrictions do apply. See the terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Hope and help is here. GamblingHelplineMA.org, GamblingHelplineMA.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. A couple other things I wanted to talk about. I thought this was interesting. And again, a lot of this stuff, as you mentioned, this article's in and around January, and you've got the trade deadline coming around and the KD situation percolating. So you have to wonder if Jaylen Brown was kind of maximum tweaked at that point with what was going on in and around the organization. Because it's like, what do I got to do here? Here we friggin' go again. Every single time one of these superstars bats their eyes over in the Celtics direction, all I hear is this is happening. But what made it interesting, and Jimmy Toscano talked about it on the Garden Report, and we did look at it, is this whole JT. This is the problem with like being buddy buddies with people. Like, you're supposed to feel loyalty towards your teammate, but you're going to tell me that Jason Tatum would have been upset if Kevin Durant got traded here? That's his buddy, and they probably have a closer relationship than do Brown and Tatum. And so here's what he had to say about that. He said KD and JT are friends. That they were working out together and whatnot. So I wasn't sure what the energy was. I love that word, energy. It covers so much ground.
Yeah,
But
I got a lot to
basically,
say about this.
he doesn't know where Tatum's head is at, and he can't know He wasn't sure the direction that the organization was going. So what does he do? He requests and makes a three-way call with Tatum and Brad, where he says he felt a little better once we got together, all kind of talked through it. We all left on the same page, but the actions that was taking place during that time, it just didn't seem like that was the direction that the organization was going in. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think what he's trying to say here is whatever's going on then, like whatever chatter, I didn't get it. And I don't know. It was hard to tell, at least. So even after that call, he felt a little better, but he still came away with that wondering, like, so do you guys want me or not want me? I can't
We
really
had this
tell.
conversation over the
Yep.
summer, and we
Yep.
had our thoughts. I, of course, wanted them to make that move. They didn't. They dipped their toes in it, it appears, and they now
And that
feel the
tweaked him. Then
consequence
it
for
comes
doing
up
that.
again. Yep.
Yeah, and all the reporting after, Nets posturing, our names thrown in there. But at the time, we're asking, why don't they come out publicly and disavow this trade request? And of course, you see they did it behind the scenes. All the reasons we discussed for why they wouldn't go out and do something like that, I think should have been exempt at that time because of the urgency and because of the stakes of trying to keep Brown involved, happy, and not just floating on the whim of every report that's coming out every day. Because remember, back at that time, every single day we're debating it. It's the main story around the NBA. And then, as you said, it comes back again at the trade deadline. So Brad can say all he wants to Brown about his security and that they'd never move him. But when your name's out there every day and you have a report from a very credible reporter in Shams saying that you were offered for Durant,
Yeah.
I still go back to that and say, what did you expect to happen? You either need to make that deal at the time and go through with it, or be very intent on doing it if you're going to try to
Yeah.
check it
Here's the
out.
thing.
I know
You're
the
right.
arguments that you're gonna make the call, right? But whatever they did when they made that call put Brooklyn in a position, like I said at the time, unless they were done very wrong by the Nets, which probably should have blown up that relationship if that was the case for good. You put yourself in position to have Brown's name attached to the Nets and attached to Durant. And if that's what you want to do, fine. I think it would have been a smart move at that time, but they didn't do it. It wasn't there. And now I think you're suffering lasting consequences of
Yeah.
doing that.
And that's the thing is this is, I guess, kind of maybe part of the Brad learning curve. We have no idea how this all went down. So much of the stuff is not quite propaganda, but it comes from certain places because it benefits certain people to have things out there. So from a Nets perspective, you're going to understand when they say, this is what's being offered and it's not nearly enough. And because you want to raise the price on someone else. You don't know if the Celtics flat out offered it, but that's out there. And again, it could just be service to, people in the Nets organization that want that out there. But you got to be really, really careful. You're right. I don't know if Brad messed it
How hard
up.
would it have been at that time to come out and say, we're
But
not
you
trading
couldn't
Jaylen
say it
Brown?
because they were trying to trade for him. That's the problem. Is you're right, Bobby. It's risky when you walk down that road. You got to be prepared. And like my stance is always, as a player, you've got to get this. And I know some people were saying things along the lines of like, honestly, Jaylen Brown should be flattered to have his name come up there. But there are a lot of people in this business who get it, in the sense that like I can't control it. It's always going to be talked about. Unless you think you are the best player in the league, you can always be traded for someone. And to think otherwise is a little bit delusional and narcissistic. So, but doesn't mean they're not human. Like, of course it's going to hurt you because you're like, so you don't love me. You just love me because I'm here. I'm the prettiest girl at the bar, but I'm not really like the one you love. Like you would move on if there was an opportunity, and that's going to make you feel shitty. They're humans. So I get it, but I've always been like, suck it up. Like you're both sides use one another. I can make the most amount of money staying with you, and you guys get to, it's a business both ways. It's always interesting when people just get hurt on the one side. Like I think Tatum should be on, like you should listen if someone says, what is it going to take to get Tatum? Like no one is untouchable at all. Like so I'm always confused by it, especially when you're talking about literally a top 5 player ever. why it would be so shocking, but it bothers him,
Well,
and it's an issue.
remember Grant's comments over the summer too, because he's out there and you're asking different guys about those trade rumors and how the team's reacting to it, and it didn't seem like Grant knew what was going on, and I don't think many on the team knew what was going on at that time. So listen, Brown, Tatum, Brad got together, sorted it out that time, and you expected that to happen. But Grant's like, oh, well, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we still love him either way. Remember that comment over the summer? So there's just so much confusion and uncertainty over that time that I think in this article clearly bleeds into mistrust. He says as much in the
Yeah.
Ringer one. Like,
So
and
I have another quote here, and I believe it's um it's
yeah, there
hard
you go.
coming it's hard coming into teams and organizations and being warm, which I think is an interesting one. And hold on, I'm blowing up here. Um, and being warm, they operate, and this was being asked specifically about the Celtics and his relationship with the Celtics. It's hard coming into teams and organizations and being warm. Now, let's be clear. When he's saying organizations, he's played for a single organization. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they operate on different principles, I think. Okay, how much can he know about other organizations outside of the Celtics? When he's saying they operate on different principles, he's saying the Celtics operate on different principles. This is an organization. They look at it as a business where they'll tell you one thing, and then behind closed doors, they'll say another, and they'll trade you off, tell you we love you, and they'll be having like, we're going to trade him next week. I think that's just how business is run. Now, yes, this is not, while it might be directed at his experience with the Celtics, I think it's also a bit of a realization that this is the general cold business of professional sports in the NBA. But it is clear that there is a level of mistrust, with the Celtics organization, taking them necessarily at their word. And I think the other thing that we're going to talk about a little bit of the email comments, where it also shows you, and Bobby, we were all there at that press conference. General vibe I got where lots of players at that presser did not necessarily jive with the lines they were being fed from ownership and Brad regarding what went down with Ime Udoka. They did not fully
Brown especially.
believe, Brown especially, and I asked him specifically this question, and he said it outright. I'm definitely not, I'm not sure. So there's trust issues there. I don't think he's super warm and fuzzy with the Celtics relationship. He mentioned the other day in the New York Times article that, like, I don't agree with everything they say. So he's now put them on blast twice.
Yeah, and there's a lot, and none of it's positive. Like, does anything here reinforce how good this situation is from either article? I guess the winning speaks for itself, and him accepting that role and embracing it, I guess that part does as well, as they try to fight for a championship right now. But this window is short, and we should have known that. Still my big frustration with them not coming through in the finals last year. That was a golden opportunity that wasn't promised, and now we're looking at an uncertain path ahead this season to get back to that point. We knew that was the case, especially once Udoka got suspended. And then next year's a contract year for Brown, essentially. So
Yep.
there's your window. 3 years. Can you get something done over that span? That's why you really wish they felt the urgency of this moment, or that they showed the urgency of this moment, this closing 10-game stretch, the playoffs in front of them. They're sliding right now. And if that's the direction they're going to go into and finish the year with, you get even more concerned about Brown's thought process on this organization. Because when we're stacking up all the negatives that he presents in these articles, his role, the city, the money possibly being limited by the CBA, the only thing you have here is them
Yep.
contending for championships year in and year out. And if that seems to be diminishing in itself,
Yep.
add it to the list.
And you're right. And so I agree, Bobby. And like, you're going to have a lot of decisions this offseason for sure, because the uncertainty is something you really can't live with. You can't have someone like Jaylen Brown walk out the door for nothing. So I've always said,
So that's where
if,
we should go next.
well,
What are you doing with all this?
I will, and I will go there. What I will say is, I think a lot of the focus will naturally be on Jaylen feeling the way he feels, and people will always look at whether he should or has a right to. I don't think that that's anything that we can that we have any say in. He feels the way he feels. And there's certainly a lot of things, and I'm not gonna say he's justified to feel this way about that and not that. there's a multitude of reasons why, from how he feels about the city of Boston and his specific treatment or the treatment of Black people in Boston, how he feels about the organization, whether he takes them at their word, how he feels about his role here and whether or not he's ever going to truly reach his potential. And then also money and whatever factors. There's a million reasons. I'm not letting the Celtics off the hook here. As you said, the misstep, in and around the trade stuff with Durant, you have to know how that's going to land. And you're right. You have to be able to anticipate how a player is going to feel or how a player is going to respond to certain things. And if your goal is to keep them here long term, you have to make them feel good. And they haven't done enough because he doesn't feel great about it, and it's evident in his comments. So again, Celtics are not off the hook here for giving Jaylen the warm and fuzzies. And if he feels a little underappreciated or disrespected, I'm not gonna disagree with him. I think it can be taken too far. I think some people, like I said, use that word respect, and it doesn't necessarily mean respect. But in Jaylen's case, I could see how he'd be like, you literally try to trade me all the time. I'm just as good at this, dude, but nobody ever treats me that way. I'm not making the amount of all-star teams. I don't know that you guys as an organization are pumping me out there on your promotions and on Twitter nearly as much as you do this guy. Like, I want to feel more love. Like, where's the love? Where's the support? I'm not feeling it necessarily. And that's how he feels. So do something.
Yeah. And he addresses the fans too.
Yeah.
If you want to go
And
in
I
that
get the
direction.
toxicity among the fan base. And if, of course, like no one's going to say that that's not an issue.
Yeah. And I thought they kind of fell short for all the crap we get about how we talk about Jaylen. I thought the fans fell a little short in not voting him an all-star starter. And that was all fans in
Yeah.
terms of the onus
Jerks.
to get him in there.
I'm putting it on you
So,
guys.
but anyway, I think that's further down the list of things he's concerned with here.
Yeah.
It
Uh,
seems like he's going to explore free agency
He
when
is,
the
and I
time
do. Before
comes.
we get into what they do in the offseason, because I think that's where we're headed, I'll point out this last one on the coaching change. Ime Joker's departure. Again, a lot of what he echoed that day. I didn't know how to feel. I was a little bit shocked, to be honest. It's not the vibe. You know what I mean? That's the way I always describe it. It was not good vibes. So again, translate what good
I'd say
vibes
so.
mean. Translate what good vibes mean. It means whatever situation was going around Udoka, he kind of felt like he was being done dirty. The vibes around Udoka's dismissal were the things that were not good. That's not condemning Udoka and whatever he did, at least in Jaylen's eyes. It's whatever you guys did to Ime, I wasn't getting good vibes off of that. And that was his feeling. Um, and that goes right at the organization, and talk about that kind of level of trust he has with them, where I don't think whatever they said to him resonated, and I don't think it did with a lot of players.
No.
Yeah.
And it's still hard to parse that one out because we don't know much of what
It is.
happened there.
It is. We are going to talk about it, Bobby, because you're right. And give me 1 second here. Hold on 1 second. We're going to talk a little bit about the rest of what's going on here with this situation. I do want to quickly tell you guys once again about one of our other sponsors here at the Garden Report, and that is AG1 Athletic Greens. By now, you guys know a ton about it because we talk about it every show, but absolutely jump on board if you haven't already. We all started it because we wanted some of the things it promises: better gut health, more energy, optimized immune system. Don't want to take a million pills and vitamins. Just do this: 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens. Boom, 1 scoop of water, and you are done for the day. Lifestyle friendly, diet friendly, fits in with your life plan. Again, super easy to do. So to make it easy for you, Athletic Greens will give you 1 year supply, immune supporting vitamin D, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Visit athleticgreens.com/garden. Again, athleticgreens.com/garden. Time to reclaim your health, arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. So go get yourself some Athletic Greens right now. And of course, if you do, boom, you get this Garden Report
Phenomenal.
t-shirt. Go check it out. It's in our description of our show, how you can sign up, submit your receipt, and take advantage of this free prize coming from the Garden Report. So again, Bobby, as you said, I think it's clear he's going to test free agency. If not, just leave. What do you do?
You keep him. I don't think you can get enough to
Okay.
sustain this core into the future by trading him, especially at this point where there's 1 year left on his deal. I always saw it, as I said at the deadline, an underrated aspect of the Durant negotiation, especially at this point, was that the Nets would be entering that contract year with him, facing all the same uncertainty and limitations in terms of extending him. So I don't know if you get appropriate value back for a guy like that. There could be situations where a star for star trade becomes possible, as we've seen in recent years with Simmons, Harden, and then I guess to some degree Irving and Durant situations brought back returns that made the Nets feel good about what they had. So there is a world, I think, where you could trade him, but I don't think that's the way to go at this point. Um, and of course, a lot of it's going to depend on what you do in the playoffs. Like if this core continues to show that they can't work together, you might have to explore something like that. But I don't find picks useful for this team. And if it's going to be a pick-driven package, I don't think that's useful. You need a star to come back who rivals Brown's impact, and that's going to be very difficult to do. I know you tossed around a name like Trey Young today.
I didn't.
I-
I only mentioned Atlanta being where he's from. If
Yeah.
the only hope you have of trading Jaylen and getting good return is if he picks his destination and fully plans to re-sign there, and it's kind of understood. And
No, but that would be something
then
feasible.
you gotta take whatever you can get. The other option is keep him and trade Tatum. Um, which will make everybody's head explode. But look, if Brown stays, there's no legit reason to do anything. But are you going to risk it? Are you going and just with your fingers crossed the whole way?
Yeah, I
Wow,
am.
I
And
would
then
never.
and then you if it happens, it happens, and you figure out what you're doing with Tatum at that point. He'll be on a super max. He'll be in year one of that deal after Brown departs. So I don't think it's feasible to trade him at that point.
I
You
find
play
that
it out.
crazy, Bobby. I find it crazy.
The alternatives aren't good. So
They're not good, but it's not that. It's just this is about laying off risk. It's not about the best case scenario. It's again, you're picking between two not great scenarios and for like it all depends on your percentages. If you think it's 50-50 Brown stays, maybe you hang in there. If you legit have no idea and in his mind he's 90% gone, like you take what you can get and you cut your losses.
well,
That's
how powerful of a factor do you think the 300 million will be?
a large one because again these guys are being advised by their agents take that money and demand the trade later. We don't know what the new CBA is going to look like and how that's going to affect some of those choices, but like everyone's saying like with Beal, no, 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 take the super max and then if you want to trade get the
So
trade
that's why
after.
I lean keep him, because I think if not this year, next year, Brown will earn that All NBA status
If
and the ability to make 300 million. So I think he takes it, despite all the.
I mean, you're like literally one ankle sprain away from like missing a few weeks and just taking you out of like you. It's so you're one. He
Well,
has to
this is
play.
why I'm so frustrated with this thing this year. It's ridiculous, and I get so mad every time I see a list with him off of it. He's a forward. He should be getting votes at forward, and he should be on the team. And instead, for some reason that makes no sense to me, he's seen as a guard, maybe because he handles the ball and scores a lot. And
As I
he's going to be
said,
in this
I
group with
I
Shea
blame double big.
Gilgeous-Alexander and all these guys. Yeah, maybe it's double big, but I don't think that's it. It- I just don't get it. And the whole system's stupid. And he's talked about this too, like the criteria not being clear, it being so impactful in the salaries you make. I don't know why there needs to be this trigger to offer him the money he deserves or that they want to give him. And if that's why they end up losing him, that's
It's silly.
ridiculous.
Here's another place where this is an extremely flawed system, and I'm not saying this would happen.
And I know
And
it helped them out with Tatum on the
yeah,
rookie deal, but I don't know.
I'm not accusing anyone of doing this, but pretend you were writers in one of five potential Jaylen Brown cities with votes on whether or not Jaylen Brown should make All NBA. Is it possible that you would make the hometown vote and intentionally leave him off just because, hey, that changes that raises the possibility we could get him over here. And I'm not saying people operate this way, or at least responsible journalists don't. But there's some hometown, stuff going on in some of these places. Could you conveniently and justifiably and plausibly put somebody in over Jaylen Brown for all NBA if you thought, it might get him out of Boston? Could you do it if you were in Philly? Could you do it if you were in Milwaukee and you viewed them as an impediment to you in the East? Like, I'm only mentioning this because the journalists should not act this way, but putting it in their hands is so freaking asinine. There's so many reasons for why. There could be hometown votes for your guys, and there
The
could
New
also
York
be
Times doesn't let their writers vote.
there could also be votes that could hurt another team, and this is one of them. You can actually damage the Celtics if you're out of town media if you wanted to right now, which is insane, but you can.
Yeah, I don't love it for those reasons. I don't know or think that's going on.
I'm not saying, but you're putting an insane amount of power. Other people can
Especially
affect.
when I think a large
Yeah,
percentage of these guys don't watch the league at large. A significant number, I would think, because whoever's voting on this needs to be glued in on things like, is Brown a forward? Because he clearly is.
also, you have no idea how much they watch, Bobby, how deeply they go into statistics or metrics. If people are just literally at the end of the day just going and looking at like bulk stats, and things like that, or just simple, playing stats like points and assists, like, that's not bad, but I think this guy's better. Like
And Brown has those, which is why I'm
he has
baffled he's not
those.
in the mix.
Yeah, he is
I
in the
have to
mix.
stack up my list this week and see where he falls realistically, because it seemed like he was a lock for a little while. And frankly, yeah, he missed 4 games with the face thing, but he came back and his average, 30 since the break? So
Totally.
I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Yeah. I don't necessarily not get it, but I've done the math on it a few times, and it's close, you know? It's I think I think I looked at it and was like, I think there are 11 automatics, maybe 12, and he's fighting for the last 2 or 3 spots.
With who? Siakam? It should be Siakam, Kawhi, George, those kind of
Again, the
guys.
automatics for Jokic, Doncic, Embiid, SGA, Lillard, Tatum,
Luka,
Giannis, Mitchell. I think
Mitchell.
Sabonis gets it on that third big, third team big.
And then you're calling
Curry,
Davis a 4, maybe?
Curry, huh?
You may be calling Davis a 4 if Sabonis is the 5
Curry,
there.
Anthony Davis, Morant up until recently, and even KD. I don't know if he's missed enough games to knock him out of it, but you think Jaylen Brown's getting more votes than KD? You could be down to
He should.
13. You could be down to 13 players. Let's call it 12. Then you've got, did I mention Mitchell as an automatic?
Yeah.
Okay, then you've got Halliburton. Then you've got
The guard, he's not
Siakam.
getting in as a guard, that's for sure.
Yeah, at Trae Young, Jalen Brunson. Here's the thing: he's in a pool fighting, fighting with some pretty significant competition. He might get it, but I think he's literally battling for one of 2 remaining spots with a bunch of
It
people.
needs to be forward because Siakam has slipped. Kawhi hasn't played a ton, and
Exactly.
I think he's got comparable production. You have George missing a lot of games. You have Zion missing the entire season, so he's
Yeah,
out.
and there's a
So the
couple there that might be questionable, but I think you're looking at least 10 or 11 locks.
and
So
Davis shouldn't be a forward. Like we
and
know Davis isn't a forward.
and Anthony Davis has also missed enough time where you wonder where he's going to slot in.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I get. I was in favor when this discussion came up last year around Jokic and Embiid. I said keep it the way it's always been, because back in the day you had, I don't know what, Shaq and Hakeem battling for one spot. Like, this is how it works. Bill and Wilt, you had 2 great players who were clearly 1 and 2 in the league battling for that same spot. So one guy was first team, one guy was second team. The game's changed too much though to not change this. Guards, forwards, centers, it's all interchangeable. They got to just make it the top 15 guys.
I think that's probably right, Bobby.
Even though it kind of goes in contrast against history and how they did it in the
It
past,
doesn't matter. I think we're
it's too subjective now.
we're not fully positionless, but we're close enough where you're costing people a lot here. Yeah, can you quibble that the guy who was 16th and 17th should have been on? Absolutely. But can you tell me that like the fourth best forward in the league didn't make it because he was a guard? Like that's
Think of last
stupid.
year. Tatum made first team over Embiid when Embiid was clearly better than Tatum last year.
Yeah, again, it's some silly stuff. So again, oh my God, I didn't mention De'Aaron Fox at the
Fox is
guard
in the
position.
mix.
I
Yeah.
didn't mention Markkinen. I didn't mention DeRozan. There's some players in there who are. I know Kyrie. Jesus, I didn't mention Kyrie.
I
You
know,
think
but on
you
my
you think
forward point,
Jalen's
he's
getting in over Kyrie as a
no,
guard?
he's
I don't.
not, but he should be in over Siakam,
I know, but look
Markkanen,
at those
even
guards
Durant.
remaining there for those positions. It's insane. And that's not to mention other mainstays like Paul George and Jimmy Butler, who always get a ton of love because of their name reputation. I think
Yeah, I'm
Brown's got
worried about this vote. I really am.
a massive, in my mind, uphill battle to make this. And again, it's a tough one. So again, it matters. But if he makes it, boy, that gives you a lot of relief heading into the
Well,
offseason
it
because
also
you're
gives you
like,
clarity, right? Because you can offer him $300 million this offseason, and if he declines that, you probably move to trade him.
exactly. So you need it bad. You're the Celtics right now, you should consider sitting Tatum for 10 games and letting Jaylen friggin' amass some heavy stats, drop to the 3 seed, roll the dice, but know that you're probably going to be able to have some clarity on Jaylen into the future. Anything or just feed him the friggin' ball. Get him going. You want short-term memory of voters and a bunch of 30-point games down the stretch and him to carry them. That's the best thing that can happen for the Celtics right now.
And he kind of is right now. They're just losing,
He
so it
is. He's
doesn't hit as
actually
hard.
right now. If he continues on and Tatum continues to struggle, it's going to be frustrating because Tatum's struggling for Celtics fans, but it's going to help JB's cause. It's going to help the
Maybe. They
Celtics
gotta I
long
think
term.
winning makes those stats resonate more, and they aren't going in a good direction right now.
That's the other problem is if they were unquestioned juggernaut of the East, he makes it.
Oh yeah, the
Them
perception's huge. I mean, if they continued at that rate early in the season, remember we were talking about Smart and All-Star, so those things matter.
It matters. Now they're kind of, back in the pack,
Yeah.
So again, it's interesting. I think it's eyebrow raising, and it's going to be a lot of trepidation for Celtics fans until there's some resolution here. And I don't know when we're going to have it, but you'd certainly, if he's going to give these types of interviews, you'd certainly like to hear different things than what he said. And you didn't. So he said what he said. He feels how he feels, and that feeling is clearly uncertainty about his future with the Celtics. It's not a matter of interpretation. He's actually literally telling you, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And that's definitive. His future isn't certain, but his feelings towards the organization at this point are clear that they're mixed, and he's not certain. And you just have to kind of live with that and, process it however you want.
Yeah, the team too. And I don't know how this will impact teammates,
Yeah.
but you stack up the concerns, whether it's Smart's role late in games, Grant's status that we've talked about for weeks now, and now Brown's discontent. I think that adds to some of the challenges late in the season for this group to get on the same page and really hit their stride. I'm worried about these guys. I really am.
There's reason to be, but we got another show here tonight, so we'll be back for sure.
Rob's
Later
back
on.
tonight.
Rob is back. Rob makes us all happy and smile. Let's see what version of Rob we have here now. Maybe the rest did him
How
some
about a
good.
big Rob game tonight to get everybody going? That would be
Wouldn't
that'd be
that
awesome.
change things? What's so funny about Rob, and we'll talk about it more tonight, is even though he's nowhere near the best version of himself, he's still so important to this team. So getting him back makes a big
And
difference.
he's the most exciting player on this team, which you've said in the past.
Yeah.
There's so much more fun when he's out there. And
Yeah.
I think that probably does reduce some of the fatigue and
And he
weariness
covers
layering on these guys.
and he covers up a lot of your mistakes too,
Yes.
with extra offensive rebounds, tap outs, things like that, having being a presence back there on the defensive end. So it gives you a greater margin for error to play with, where you're not going to have a game like you had last game where you shoot 43% from 3, turn the ball over only like 8 times and somehow lose a game because you
Yeah.
got, destroyed on the glass. So in whatever it was that happened late. Once again, we'll mention to you FanDuel. If you sign up at fanduel.com/Boston, you can take advantage of a special offer, 200 in bonus bets once you make a $5 wager. So again, if you are interested in doing this, please check it out and please go through this URL. That way they know we sent you. FanDuel.com/Boston. For your $200 in bonus bets. We're going to wrap it. We are back later on tonight for the Garden Report. But until then,
We
he's
got
Bobby Manning.
Josue.
Yeah, I think so.
Jimmy out probably.
Jimmy probably out. Yeah. But we are going to wrap it up. But we'll be back later with a late night edition of the Garden Report. So